It's been 4 months since we launched our creator monetization. Let's take a look what has happened since. You earned almost $100,000 in engagement-based payouts, and your games were played almost 30 million times. Let's check some of the best games you have made. The best retaining games were Skate Obby, Goofy Soundboard, and Trials Obby. The game with exceptional visuals was Ninjutsu Kid. And the most innovative was Hammer Obby. Top remix game was Rock Tycoon Idol. And most liked game was none other than Easy Obby. We are continuing to improve creator monetization so you can earn more from your games. And now, you can win even bigger in our $100,000 Retention Bounty Challenge. Check more info on our website. See you in HypeHype.
What is happening, Hypesters? Welcome back to the HypeHype Live. I'm going to be your host, Shogun. Today, it is the HypeHype Helpdesk is open for business. I have a number of demos to go through of new nodes that have released over the last few weeks. A lot of cool stuff. Most of them pretty simple, though, so we'll see how much time this takes. We might have a lot of time in the second half of the stream for questions. So this is the stream where you can get some help in the editor if you are looking for it. So if you have some questions, hang on to those. I am confident we're going to have some time for questions later in the stream. But for now, first, what's up, everybody in the chat? Hope you guys are having an awesome Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't we jump in and start taking a look at some of these new nodes and features that we have going on here. So the first thing we're going to look at is Skyboxes. Skybox is a very cool way to add some really nice visual style to your game. So what I have here right now, empty game. We started from scratch. And doing the Skybox, super simple. So we're going to go into environment, obviously where we're going to work with sky. And then we're going to want to edit a style. We're going to go to the background tab. And then from there, we're going to go custom image. And this is going to bring up this little pop-up where we can add an image. So about the images, there are a specific kind of like way to set up these files, I guess. This is personally my first time working with these types of skyboxes and creating these things. So you can see here in my files, I've downloaded a whole bunch of different sky images. Some of them are just straight up pictures of the sky. Some of them have actually been formatted to be skyboxes. So the main thing you want to keep in mind if you're going to make your own is that I guess the image should be 2:1, the dimensions. And then you can see here on a lot of these, there's like a horizon right in the middle, right? So, because that's going to be your horizon line when you create the skybox. And then you want it to have, be able to be seamless on the edges, right? So your two edges should be the same so that when they wrap around and they come together, you're not going to see a seam there. And I'll show you what I mean. So first, let's just put, sure, that one will... No, one of these. There we go. That one will work. Let's open. This is one, a custom one that I made. So we go in here now. We look around like, oh, we have clouds. Cool. If we go away from the ground, we can see awesome clouds. Nothing like super fancy about this one. It's pretty mild. There is a really bright glow there where the sun is. That's not great, but, you know, we learn as we do. And then I say, check, cool. It's created the skybox image for me, and now I have this skybox. Of course, we don't have a playable character in here, but if we could run around, look around, we would be able to see that skybox. And then, like, for example, like that was one that I actually made to be a skybox, right? If we go back in here and we change this image and we just grab now one of these random pictures of sky that I have, like this one, it's not 2-to-1. It doesn't have a center horizon. But it's still going to give us like a decent skybox here, right? Like we got these clouds, cool, but then dun dun dun, there's the seam. So, like if you're going to have a fixed camera, you're only ever going to be looking this direction, maybe the seam doesn't matter, but obviously if you're going to be able to look in 360 degrees, you don't want to see that seam. So that's why you're going to want to make sure that you have a file that has been set up for this, whether you make it yourself or you go searching to download some off of the internet. You want to make sure that it's going to be formatted correctly, at least for that wrap, right? So there was Skybox, and that was the first thing we had to look at. Skybox. Let's reset. I'm totally lost here. Okay. Um, what can you do with Skybox? All kinds of stuff. Question: would it work if it's a real life pic? Yes, you could literally put any picture you want in here, and it will create a skybox for it. Whether or not it will look good is a whole nother question. But we could go in here, background, custom image. Like what else do I have here? I have like a little character sheet. We're gonna open up my sprite sheet, and now we've got a really ugly skybox with a bunch of massive character pictures. Yeah, it's going to create the skybox from whatever picture you put in there. Which again is why you want to try and make sure that your picture is set up to be a skybox. What else can I throw in here? Anything funny? Not really. You just put like a random screenshot from a level. Again, so bad. And you get that at the top, right? Because it pinches everything together at the top to create the top of the box. All right. So next thing on the list is going to be kind of a quick one. There's not going to be a ton to show for it, but it was the second one that I actually put on the thumbnail, so it's the one we're going to talk about next, and that is, where is it? Global Save. So first thing to note about Global Save is that this is kind of an in-progress tool. There is two things about it. One is the name is going to change. It's not going to be Global Save. We have found that has been a little confusing for some people. So the name is going to be changed to Global State. And the big change, I think the one that people are going to be most interested in, is that currently this Global Save, which will save a value for everybody playing the game, right now only works in a single session, right? So you can go into a session, everybody in that session is contributing to the Global Save, but once everybody leaves that session and that session is over, that data also goes away. But in the next update, that should be changing so that that data will be persistent over all the sessions. So you would be able to create something, for example, like, like everybody needs to do damage to a wall, and once a ridiculous amount of damage has been done, the wall will open up. So every player that plays the game can go in and do some damage to that wall to contribute to the wall opening, something like that. Currently, you can only do that within a session, but in the next update, you should be able to do that over the lifetime of your game. So that's a very cool tool. How does it work? It is essentially a number node. Um, it has an execute right now. That is also going to go away. Um, because essentially anytime you put a value into it, it's going to check with the server. It's going to see if anybody else has been putting values into it, and then it's going to send that data back and save it into the global save. Um, so you can just save whatever value you want in there, and it's going to save. Again, currently just for the current session, but in the next update, it will be able to save that permanently. So very awesome tool for some like big co-op events, stuff like that. And emojis in the chat. All right. Yes, Dorian. So this is saving for the game and not for each individual player. Every player that goes, well, when it works properly, when the full permanent saving function is there, everybody that comes into the game is going to get the value that is saved in this node. Alu says, I think it's already saves permanently. Maybe. I was told next update, but maybe it was last update. I could be wrong. All right. And then I guess along a similar thing, we could talk a little bit about where was it? Huh. All right, I'm going to skip that for now. Let's move to player info. Okay, so some more info from Yelp is that it doesn't necessarily reset after every session, but it will reset currently. But it will not once the updates come through. All right, H10 physics bubble. We will be talking about the physics bubble in just a few moments. Let's look at the player info first, and then we can talk physics bubble. And actually, there was one other thing I wanted to show related to the visuals, and I kind of gone out of order here. But player info, pretty straightforward. You can get information about the player playing the game and feed it into the game, including the player's name, how long they've played the game, how many sessions they've played the game, how many unique days they have played the game, whether or not they're in a party, and even how they got there. Did they get to your game from opening a share link? So, what can you do with that? I don't know. Lots of cool stuff. What would you guys do with that? Certainly, you'd be able to place the player's name into your game in a number of different ways. That could obviously be really handy. But I'm really curious, like, what kind of cool stuff you could do with their play information to kind of like communicate to your players while they're playing your game, um, about their activity within your game. That's pretty cool. Maybe give a reward for every day the player comes and plays your game. That's something you could do, or give something based on how many sessions they've played. Lots of cool ideas there. All right, so that's player info. I'm not going to go too deep into that. Pretty straightforward. So next one, let's load up a demo that I had prepared here. And then after that, I promise we're going to talk about the physics bubble. All right. Long question there. Um, Hang on to that. I have two more demos to get through, and then I can come back and try and help you out a little bit. But let's go here. So I have this scene here, right? We're going to open this up in the editor, and what we're going to talk about now is lighting capture, another new feature that does something like super cool. So you can see we play here. I've set just up a little city scene here. I have this cube that comes out of the ground, and this looks basically like a hype game looks. Um, One thing to note here is, like, for example, all of these windows, I've gone and in this blue, it has no roughness. Like, I don't know how much the metallic matters. The metallic is turned all the way up. But essentially, what we've done on the windows is make it a kind of a reflective surface. Um, so what the lighting capture does is, at the beginning of your game, wherever you place it, it's going to take a snapshot of the surrounding environment, and it's going to use that as essentially like a reflection map. So let's grab one. I think actually it's already here. It's just disabled. And you're going to see right away, I enable this, and right away all those materials that I had made reflective, they changed. You can see some reflection in the thing here. If I go up, you can start to see some reflection of the wind of the ground. And then if we play, and this thing is super shiny, so we can go around and we can see those reflections on the cube. This is super cool. Now, one thing to note about this is that it only takes a snapshot at the very beginning when your game loads, right? So we can see here, we can actually see if we go up to it, there's me, but it's not moving with me. Like my player character, it's just sitting there kind of staring at me. So that's weird. That was also why I made that cube rise up out of the ground, so that the cube wasn't there at the beginning, and would be part of that snapshot. And then there's also things to keep in mind, like it only takes a snapshot from the position of the node, so you can actually even see here as I grab the node and move it around, you can see how the thing is changing. And again, this is a new type of thing. I've not really worked for this. And yeah, so that's what I was getting at. What Yelp is talking about in the chat right now is that this is going to work better if you're not moving around a lot, or if you take the snapshot from somewhere where you have like a really kind of generic reflection, right? So maybe you take your snapshot from a completely different area, just so that you have something to reflect in the windows. And then another thing to keep in mind too is related to that moving around, is that it is kind of a static thing. So you can see here, like as I move closer, the image in the windows stays kind of the same size. As I move away, the image stays kind of the same size. So again, it doesn't hold up super well if you're moving around a lot. But if you're moving around just a little bit within a confined area, it's going to be really cool. Exactly, Dorian. That's pretty much what's going on there. And so again, I don't know what the best practices are for this tool. This is a new one for me. I haven't been using it for more than a couple of days now. But some interesting stuff you can probably do with that. Like, I don't know where the best position to take your snapshot from. Like, how high off the ground do you want it to be? And I think that really also depends on what you want those reflections to look like. So if anybody has worked with tools like this before, you have some best practices for that kind of stuff, throw it up in the chat. Would love to hear insights from people. Okay. And now last one before we go to questions, I think. And that's going to be, actually, we can just stay in here. Okay, continue editing, sure. Let's talk about the physics bubble. So what the physics bubble is essentially it is an optimization tool. So we can take our physics bubble here, we can attach it to our player, and now we have a physics bubble with a 25 radius, unit radius. I don't know what we call that. It's not really meters because it has not scale like that. But we set the radius here. Obviously, this is adjustable. We can make it smaller. We can make it bigger. The default is 25. And what it does is basically any dynamic physics objects you have in your game world will only be able to have their dynamic properties when they are within that physics bubble. When they are outside of the physics bubble, they will always be in the sleep mode. So essentially, this is a way to ensure that you don't have physics going on somewhere that you can't even see that's eating up some of your performance bandwidth, right? It's going to be really helpful in games that have a lot of physics objects. Yeah, I mean, I can. Let's do a little demo of it. I'm going to go into a new game. I have a quick idea for a demo here if we just go to start from scratch, right? So let's grab some more cubes. Cube. I actually meant to prepare this ahead of time, so I apologize for that. I should have been prepared for this. Let's do a snap to grid. All right, we're going to have dynamic physics on all of these. Duplicate, 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 duplicate. Okay. I'm going to grab an explosive force. Explosive force targeted to this middle guy. And then maybe we'll do another layer of these guys. And then one more, sure. And then we'll be able to execute that explosion with the button. Cool. So we say boom, explode, cubes go everywhere. Now, if we add the physics bubble, I didn't test this, so I don't know exactly what this is going to do, but hopefully it does what I think it's going to do. We're going to put the physics bubble on that middle cube, and I'm actually going to, I don't want this guy to move. So he's going to stay there. Boom. Okay, everything stayed within the physics bubble, right? Our physics bubble here is quite large. Let's make it smaller. Make it really small. Boom. Everything freezes once it gets to the edge of the physics bubble. All right. Sleep threshold of dynamic objects. You can edit that in your physics properties. So you go to your physics properties have in advanced. Oh, do we not have that anymore? I take it back. We used to be able to do that, but it's not here anymore. So I spoke too soon. All right. Now, that was the nodes I had prepared. We got through everything. I think so. All right. So that has to do with the changing of the physics engine. Cool. Good to know. All right. So now let us go back a little bit to the questions that were posed. Hold on one second. Sorry, I need my mouse here so I can scroll the chat. But we had a number of questions about, here we go. Ray casting and removing enemy health. Also tried to find, okay, how to create 2 teams so they can fight each other. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of different ways you can do this. I'm going to kind of break down a little bit of the easiest aspects of this. So let's delete this. So let's first, super simple thing. Let's add some pre-mades. Let's go here. Let's give us a character. We want pre-mades. I'll say playable. So let's get the fighter here. Sure. Let's see where we are. Let's get him well positioned. Is this going to be okay camera wise? That looks fine. All right. And then let's get an enemy as well, and we can look at this from within some existing logic. All right. I guess we'll just take a zombie here. Okay, so now on the very basic level, this already works. So we can see the zombie has some health. If we go and we fight him, he loses health until he runs out of health. So how is that working? Let me go back to the current chat. Okay, so that works. Let's examine how it works. So if we look at our player character here and we go to our fighter system, oh, this has, because we added a bunch of pre-mades, it's just throwing all these behaviors into one spot here. So let's separate some of this stuff out a little bit. Turn camera. That's player health. There's the player attack, the zombie attack. Nope. Let's move this whole thing. All right, enemy health, zombie controls. All right. So we have a bunch of different behaviors here that are controlling both our player and our zombie. We have a health system for each one. We have the control system for each one. The player has this drag and turn camera system. And then we have these 2 attacks. And so the way that both of these ones are working, and of course there's many different ways you could do this, is that when it attacks, it spawns one of these. Basically, it's like an invisible trigger area that says, you know, you throw your attack, the trigger area spawns. It says if there is an enemy within that area, we're going to damage that enemy. And how it is doing that, let's see if I can actually, if this does it the way that I would do it. And yeah, all right. So what we have in here is actually in this, we have a collision trigger. This is a little bit older. We try to not embed these things in the object anymore, but there was a time where collision detector needed to be embedded in an object. Anyway, the collision detector is search for red group. If you're using pre-made enemies are always going to be in the red group. Things that can do damage to you are always going to be in the red group. So when you're attacking as the player, your attack is looking for the red group. And what it's going to do here is it is going to send the enemy that it hits through this broadcaster as a target, right? So all of the enemies have this inflict damage broadcast listener. If we go here, into the enemy zombie health. We can see we have take damage here. Why is it take damage there? And it's inflict damage here. Is this using, but it still works. Oh, the node is just called take damage. It's still using the inflict damage signal. So that was a little confusing. I would maybe change that name. But so if we even go a little bit deeper here, we go into our player. We can probably find in here. Wow, this is also old because this logic is not spaced out super nicely. Where's the spawner? Is it in here? No. We should have a spawner somewhere. Oh, that's the health. That's why. So we go here. We have, I think it's probably this one. Yes. So when we hit the button, this is our attack button that's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. When we hit that, first it's doing a check if that's allowed. That's unimportant. Then it is executing this spawner, which spawns that detection area, right? And then it's running some animations, whatever. Most important thing is it's spawning that punch attack. So from the player, we go to the punch attack. Again, we've already looked at this. It's setting the player that it comes into contact with, it's setting as the target for the broadcaster. And what this does is it's only going to send that signal to the targeted enemy because every enemy has this signal in it. So if you just send the damage through the broadcaster, it's going to go to all enemies. So here, by targeting your broadcaster, then sending the value through, which is how much damage is going to be done, it's only going to target the one that was hit by this collision detector. And so then again, we go back into the enemy health, and this goes to, let's see where it is saving this value. I guess it's saving it in this compare. Or is it getting it somewhere else? Where is this going? This is one thing that I would usually do, which is kind of an unnecessary step. But I like, if I have a value that's being constantly saved, something like a health, I like to have a standalone number node for that, even though you don't usually need it. I like to have it because for me, it makes reading the logic more easy. But what we have here is this is actually sending this value to two different nodes. So first it's going to this compare node, which is checking how much damage has the guy taken. Is it more damage than the guy has? Right? And so if the guy is not dead, then he just takes some damage. We got the false there. It goes to this damage, runs a little animation, plays a little particle effect or something. If it is enough damage to kill the guy, then it plays a different string of logic down here, which ends in the guy being destroyed. So that is kind of an enemy player system. Now, if you have two different teams, I've never really done this kind of like a team-based in a multiplayer thing. I assume that's what you're going for. I guess in that case, you would probably just have to define. It does get a little more complicated. My first thought, which I'm gonna tell you what I'm thinking, but I'm gonna preface it with the fact that usually my first thought is overly complicated, and there's probably a much easier way to do it. But this is my process. So my first thought would be that you would make two sets of playable characters, one for each team, um, and then essentially one of the teams would just they would act as the enemies. They would be in the red group, the other team would be in the green group, and then all of this logic would still work together. Um, then in that case, you would also you have to get into multiplayer logic, which gets a little more complicated. Um, and one thing I would preface about working with multiplayer is that we are currently in early access. We only have one server for HypeHype right now. So if you're trying to play a multiplayer game and you are far away from that server, you might not have the greatest experience. Um, so with that in mind, you can certainly create multiplayer games. There's been some pretty good ones so far. We would love to see more. But also, you might be better off at this stage doing something that's a little more lighter in the multiplayer area that's not going to require teams to like fight with each other, right? In real time. You can use the ghost mode, or I think it's what is it called in here? It's called like see others. Um, so yeah, if you want to do real multiplayer where the players can directly interact with each other, then you're using the custom mode. And I can show really quickly kind of basically what you would want to do. Um, but we have a bunch of multiplayer nodes here at the bottom. I think you would need the multiplayer spawner and the multiplayer info. And so the multiplayer info, is that not? Maybe we don't have that yet. You should be able to get team info, I thought, from this node, but maybe that's not in yet. Maybe y'all can tell me if I'm off base there. Uh, okay, okay. So I'm not crazy. It's not there yet. So yes, you'll be able to get team info from the multiplayer info, and then in that way you would be able to choose which player type gets spawned, right? So you would say if they're on team one, you select from team one's players. If they're on team two, you select from team two's players. Um, it's going to be more complicated than that. Um, but yeah, so I'm not going to do it live on the stream, but I promise I will take a look at your post on the Discord and see if I can help you out any or find somebody that can. And then Yuio, what is not found going to do? So not found here in multiplayer. This is just a player broadcast listener. So we introduced the player broadcaster a while ago. And the player broadcaster and player broadcast listeners, they kind of, to some degree, work interchangeably with the normal broadcaster and broadcast listener. So we introduced the player broadcaster first. And what the player broadcaster does is in a ghost session, so the see other session where you can see other players, but you cannot directly interact with them. This is one way that you actually can directly interact with them. Because if you execute this player broadcaster, we have a bunch of random things in here, but let's just say, for example, inflict damage, right? We send this player broadcaster inflict damage signal through the player broadcaster. It's going to go to every player in that session. Whereas if this was a normal broadcaster, it's just going to go to the player that executed it. And so the player broadcast listener is essentially the other side of that. You wouldn't necessarily need it in the example that I just explained, but maybe there's some other examples where you would need it. But yeah, player broadcast listener. It functions pretty similar. Oh, this gives a team index. We can also get player name, player index. Ah, that's cool. You can get some cool stuff from there. That's what that's for. That's why we have a separate one, so that you can get this extra info that you cannot get from a normal broadcast listener. Super. Yeah, I'm sure that should be fixed soon. It's probably just a mistake in a spreadsheet somewhere or something like that. All right. So what do we got here? We got about 20 minutes. Um, so we're open for more questions here. Any questions about the new nodes we looked at? Any questions about any other features in the editor? I will do my best to help you out with that. Um, Or I can just open up something to work on that I've been working on. 20 minutes left. Get a little work done, huh? Did I have any other fun demos? One thing I'll note, I don't know how many people have been around for a long time here. Interface demo. Okay, okay. Interface is one that I'm not super great with, but I have a demo here that kind of, or I have a draft, or maybe it's unlisted somewhere that shows some interface action. Where do I have this? Interface. Is it in, do I have it in unlisted? Toggle list links. All right, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to build it. Let's go. All right, so what are we gonna need here? Basically, what the interfaces are used for is to allow objects to communicate with each other when some sort of impact is detected. So let's change the color of one of these. We've got two different cubes. Let's take our red one in here. Let's add a object touch so that we can easily move it around. We're going to say the green one can be dragged camera, right? So now we can pick this guy up and we can move it into that other one. Then we set up in each one some interface. So we have two interfaces. We have the interface caller and the interface implementation. And this is where my inexperience with these tools is at its worst, because I'm not 100% sure ever, no matter, even though I've used these a couple of times, I never know which one to use for which purpose, because they kind of do the same thing. But anyway, so we're gonna target this guy to here, and we're gonna target this guy to there. And I think actually we might need these to be in a container. What is the two-plate button asset? Okay, so Yelp says implementation should be in the object you want to send the information to. The caller and implementation need to have the same target. All right. So, who the heck is this? No, thank you. How can I ignore? Whatever, I'll just ignore it. I do not have any information at this time about custom animations. I believe that's kind of a bigger thing, so I wouldn't expect it to come super soon. So if you would collide something, you can set the target for the caller from the on collision start. You can pass any information to the collided object if it has the interface implementation. Okay, so let's take a look at this. First, we need some All right, so here we can, what is this? Test done. Okay, yeah. All right, so we create an interface here and we can add inputs and outputs. So the inputs will let us pass any of this kind of information. The outputs will also let us pass any of this kind of information. So for an easy one, let's just set a number in and number out. All right. And then this, will this use the same? So we'll just use test again. And then, so we'll add here, we just want to visualize this. So we'll add a text that's like right above the cube. And that will get our input value. And so then this one, we'll get like a number here. This will be, sure, 25. This will be our input value on that side. I have no idea if this is going to work. Inexperienced with this node. Let's see. So there's our target. We'll make this guy red group. Since he's red, this will be red group collision detector. And on collision start, I'm going to look at Yelp's. So if you collide with something, you can set the target from the caller for caller from the collision. Then you can pass any information it has to the interface. Paper Piece says, all right, Paper Piece, let's look at that one in 1 second. I'm going to finish this up real quick, and then that might be the last thing we can do. But that's one I've actually done before. and basically understand how it works. So we take the on collision start and we say target there. No. First set the target and then execute the number node so that it, oh, okay. So we need a execute, we need to set the target, and then we also need to execute the number node so that it passes that value. So boom, there we go. Okay. Boom, interface has passed a value. And you can also then pass values back the other way, basically using the same steps. So not the greatest interface example, but that's basically how it works. And of course, this is super simple. Like, you could pass much more complex information between the two nodes. Yeah. So what was the other one? It was passing a color mix value to the UI node. I think that, let's grab, we need a color mix here. We need a UI node, and I suspect we may need a color node here. I could be wrong about that, but let's see. So let's very quickly in our interface, or yeah, let's add a user interface with different kind of interface. Just going to add a panel here, and we're going to say that we can input color to that panel. So I think if the color mix just goes to color panel here, use calculated value, that should do it. So if we set like color B is pink here, that's white. This on start, still white. Right, that's definitely not doing anything. Change the value of the color in the UI node panel. This is our color. I wonder if we give it a different, because the other thing you can do is like this can actually change one of your colors. Whoops, not white. We want this sun color. So there it works, right? But now we're not actually inputting, like this will work, I think, even without this link, right? Because this is now just changing that color, right? So we have set the sun color as the target for this color mix, and now anything that has that sun color is going to be affected by what the color mix does. So that's at least one way to do it without having to push any links at all. But yeah, I could have sworn that, what if we do this, use calculated value, and we put this to our color. Whoops. Let's put this back to none. Yeah, that's still. There is a way to do that, but obviously I'm having a little difficulty getting it to work at the moment. Because I've definitely done this before, and it is possible to push that color in there. So I'm curious what I am not doing properly. Yeah. I thought, though, that we definitely used to be able to do that because I've done it before. So it is possible to import assets into the game. Currently, it is not possible to import animations. But if you want to import assets, you go to the asset creator, you go to new assets, and you can either upload an asset or you can create a new asset from existing assets within HypeHype. I've only personally used this to do sounds, but because I'm not a 3D modeler, but I guess that should work as well. Although there has been issues with the asset uploading. So will it work if it's, where are we here? So if this is not none, but it's also not the one that the color mix is using. Oh, it does work. Right? Because this is using just the white. I set this one to be that sun color. We could switch it to gray as well. And then it's still inputs. Okay. So yeah. So whoever said that first, I think it was maybe PT. You were right. You have to give it a target color there, but it doesn't have to be the same color that is being used by the input or by the UI. I would say uploading models with animation is going to be really tricky because you have to match our animation system. I do not know if the instructions that we have on the website have information about that. Let me let's go here for a moment. Let's go. Is that in here? Art and access, working, scene, working with that? No. Somewhere here we have instructions for uploading assets, but oh, is it going to be if we go here and then we go here and then it is assets, asset creation instructions. There we go. So this is talking about how to do all the different kinds of asset creation that are currently available. And I think, do we have anything in here about animations? Asset naming. I could have sworn there was character asset checklist. There we go. There's another page of this. Rigging. So here we go. It is here. Cool. So if you want to have a character that can be animated using the animations that we already have in the game, you will need to follow this rigging setup. I cannot help you with that. Again, I am not a 3D modeler. I do not know how to do that. But the information is there, learn.hypehype.com. What is this page? Well, it's pretty deep in there, but if you go tools and features, and then the toolbar, then the asset creator, and finally you can check out the asset creation instructions and the character asset checklist. Planning to add queue and stack lists as a logic node, that I do not know, but I can certainly pass the request along. All right. Well, we managed to get through a stream. How's it? Thanks, guys. What's going on? Time is up. It caught me off guard. I was not prepared. I thought we still had like 10 minutes. So that is going to do it for the stream today. Next week on the stream, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to be doing. Normally, we would be playing top charts next week. So that might be what we're doing, but I think we might have something else going on in its place. We will see. I'll let you know next week. Until then, thank you so much for spending some of your Thursday here with me. Thank you for all the great questions. We all learned something today, including me. Even Yelp learned something today, and that's kind of difficult to do. So successful stream in my humble opinion. Anyway. Again, thank you for spending part of your Thursday with me. I hope the rest of your day is awesome, that your Friday and weekend are incredible, and I will see you all next week, whatever it is that we're doing here on the stream. Peace out, Hypesters.
It's been 4 months since we launched our creator monetization. Let's take a look what has happened since. You earned almost $100,000 in engagement-based payouts, and your games were played almost 30 million times. Let's check some of the best games you have made. The best retaining games were Skate Obby, Goofy Soundboard, and Trials Obby. The game with exceptional visuals was Ninjutsu Kid. And the most innovative was Hammer Obby. Top remix game was Rock Tycoon Idol. And most liked game was none other than Easy Obby. We are continuing to improve creator monetization so you can earn more from your games. And now, you can win even bigger in our $100,000 Retention Bounty Challenge. Check more info on our website. See you in HypeHype.